Chapter 26. Jim and Lisa and Thomas and Sylvester Stallone. Rachael left for her home the next morning. She lived out of state, but she left behind many beautiful moments for Amar to still drink from. It was as though he was momentarily stuck in a time warp of some sort. He felt Rachael's presence within him that entire week, even though she was not there. She was more than 1,000 miles away, but Amar did not experience their separation. Not then, not even fully now. Whenever he closed his eyes, even momentarily, Amar could see Rachael's beautiful face in front of him, her warm smile lighting up Amar's heart, and he felt her touch too, and he could smell her fragrance, and he distinctively remembered the texture of her hair, those beautiful curls, the gorgeous highlights. He could feel her presence even when his eyes were open and when he went about doing his stuff that week. Walking down Michigan Avenue, Rachael seemed to be with him. Running some chores, the bank, the post office, the dry cleaners, Rachael seemed to be with him. He never felt alone. He just felt happy. Very, very happy. That evening, Amar found himself wandering back to the redhead. It was almost instinctive, as though he was programmed to go back, to again experience the ambience of that fantastic piano bar, and to again remember where and how he and Rachael first met. Amar smiled as he crossed the street, and in the context of his original home country of India, the Redhead Piano Bar was fast becoming what is known as a shrine, a place to be remembered, to be revisited, to be honored. And he could see the redhead rising slowly but steadily into that exalted position, and he smiled again. Thomas Lensk and Lisa McClowry were playing that night. Amar had heard them a few times before. He liked their music, and he found Lisa very attractive because she was. There was something about her Irish last name that struck a chord with him. He did not know what it was. He could not place it. He had been in love with Ireland when he visited that beautiful country a few summers ago, but that was not it. He loved the spirit of Dublin and the spots that belonged to U2 and Bono, and he loved the undulating landscape of the Irish countryside and its seemingly untouched beauty. It was different. It was natural and not doctored or manicured in any way. It just was, and it was beautiful. But that was not it either. One of Amar's favorite movies centered around Irish characters, but that was not it either. P.S. I Love You struck a chord with Amar for far deeper reasons, reasons that he did not fully understand at the time. Perhaps there were messages that were woven within its magic that had something to do with Amar's signal-to-noise theory. Perhaps there were many parallels, but he did not know yet. He did not try and connect the dots, not yet. So he just knew that he liked Thomas and Lisa's music, and that he found Lisa hot, very hot, and he liked to hear her sing, and every so often, when she would engage the audience with her eyes while singing, if her eyes met his, Amar felt nice. Not erotic or sexual, not yet, but nice, very nice. So that night, when he was swaying to the tunes of Lisa and Thomas, Amar did not at first notice the personality that walked into the redhead, arm in arm with his wife. Then Lisa announced during the break before the next song, "Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Peterick's in the house," and the crowd erupted in applause, and Amar realized that somebody special had walked into their midst that night. Lisa and Thomas continued to do their stuff, to play their songs, and to help people forget about life for a while. But Amar was a bit distracted by now. He had heard the name before, and he knew that Jim Peterick had been famous, very famous, but he could not remember why, and he wanted to remember. He wanted to remember at that very moment. Jim was a gracious and affable person, and he seemed to enjoy chatting with all who walked up to him to talk that night, and there were so many people crowding around Jim and his wife. As Amar observed Jim, Amar could not help but sense that Jim was someone who had walked the halls of fame, well beyond the redhead, that Jim had been there, done that, and this intrigued Amar even more, but he could not remember, and he really wanted to. After a couple more songs, Lisa invited Jim to the piano as Thomas stepped aside to let him play. It was then that Amar realized how special Jim was. This was never allowed at the Redhead. You could not come in for the evening to enjoy the music and have some drinks and sing with the singer or play at the piano. It was just not allowed, unless you were Billy Joel or Jim Peterick. Amar had seen Billy Joel's picture on the wall behind the piano, so he knew Billy Joel had played there. He now also knew that Jim Peterick played and still plays there. And then, as Lisa formally introduced Jim to the crowd, it all came back to Amar, and he remembered exactly how special Jim was, how very special Jim was. Jim was the father of one of Amar's all-time favorite songs from when Amar was 15 years old. Here was the man who co-wrote Eye of the Tiger for the Sylvester Stallone hit movie Rocky III. Here was the man in flesh and blood who had given the rock band Survivor one of their greatest hits when they sang his song on their third album, which carried the name of the song as its title, Eye of the Tiger. The song was released as a single on May 29, 1982, and it was a chart-topping song. It topped the charts worldwide in 1982. Jim played Eye of the Tiger that night at the Redhead. Amar and most of the people in the bar sang it with Jim at the top of their voices. Amar could not remember a time when his music had swayed him so much. He loved his music, and it took control of him, especially in live performances. And he was grooving that night. He loved the song. He loved to hear and see Jim play it, and he loved to see Lisa partake in the song along with Jim. Amar had heard a number of artists and groups live in concert, including the legendary Mark Knopfler and his band Dire Straits, Sting, Phil Collins, Eric Clapton, the Eagles, Paul Simon, Stevie Wonder, Pink Floyd, America, Jimmy Buffett, Foreigner, Shakira, and of course, one of his all-time favorites, Bryan Adams. But Amar had never heard any of them or members of their team play in a piano bar, up close and personal. And tonight, he got to hear Jim Peterick and Lisa sing Eye of the Tiger up close and personal. Very personal. Amar smiled again as he swayed to the music, and he took in the moments, and he was happy, very happy. And yet, as magical as that evening was, and as brilliant as Survivor's and Jim Peterick's success had been around their song, there was a small factoid that Amar was not aware of at the time, but he would learn about it a few days later. And it was as real as the night and the day, and it made Amar's meeting Jim and hearing and watching him play that evening even more special. And the factoid was this: Sylvester Stallone had actually wanted to get Queen's Another One Bites the Dust to be the title song of his movie Rocky III, but he was unable to get the required permissions. Only then did Stallone ask Jim to write a song for the movie. None of them knew at the time that it was going to be a #1 hit on the global charts. Not Stallone, not Jim, not Queen, and certainly not Amar. Not at that time. None of them knew that it was going to help propel the movie Rocky III to an unparalleled zenith as compared to where Rocky I and Rocky II had reached. And none of them knew that way back in 1982, in Amar's home in the upscale neighborhood of Malabar Hill in Mumbai, that Amar was going to blast that song on his powerful JBL L110 speakers, powered by his equally powerful Harman Kardon amplifier. The sound was so beautiful, so clear, so distinct, and so punchy. And none of them knew at the time that the song that all of Malabar Hill would hear emanating from Amar's speakers would also become a huge hit in the city of Mumbai, almost halfway across the world from where Jim was at that time. And none of them knew that 29 years later, Amar would actually get to hear and watch Jim Peterick, the father of that sublime song, perform it live at the Redhead Piano Bar in Chicago, along with the beautiful Lisa singing by his side. None of them knew this was going to come to pass, and yet it did, in the most uncanny of ways, because it was meant to be. Only the voice knew that, and it knew it well. And so here was the man, Jim Peterick, a deep and caring personality who had got to write a song that touched the world, and he stumbled upon the opportunity to create magic because Queen would not give permission to Stallone. He stumbled upon the opportunity to create magic because it was meant to be. Neither Stallone knew it at the time, nor Jim, nor Queen. 29 years later, after the song was released, Amar understood this deeply. He understood it because in his own life, he had gotten to be blessed with circumstances and events which came upon him by chance when he was not looking, and because someone else rejected the opportunity. It happened to him several times during his life, in his high school days in India, and at some of the darkest moments in Amar's life. He had also seen it happen before to people he knew and to people who were famous, people like Harrison Ford, people like Anil Kapoor of Slumdog Millionaire fame, and to Walt Disney. The world at large did not even know the parallels to what had happened in the lives of Jim Peterick, Harrison Ford, Anil Kapoor, Walt Disney, and Amar. They had no clue of how the universe had conspired to make things happen, to work in mysterious ways and make things happen that were meant to be, and that subsequently were, and that they were all signal, no noise, not at all. And the voice spoke again to Amar, and it said, "Remember, it's all good. This is all good."